So I've got this wonderful, unenviable task of being the person who has to speak between you and your coffee break. The bad news is I am utterly passionate about what I do. I could speak for hours. The good news is I only have 3 slides, and one of those is a picture. So yes, my name is Reverend Charlie Kerr. I am in receipt of Common Vision funding for a role for 4 years as a school chaplaincy advisor to the Board of Education here at Oxford. So the first picture as well is actually stolen from Bishop Stephen. I thought that would be a good way to start. So from your Diocesan Synod report. And it's stuff we're very, very used to hearing about. It's the mental health problems that are facing our young people. And of course, they inherit them in a sense from the society that we create as adults. There we have 1 in 4 girls self-harming, aged 14, and 1 to 10 in that age group there, 5 to 16, having mental health problems. Most worryingly, it's thought that statistic doubles for the age group 16 to 25, so 1 to 5 is a rough estimate for that. So we have real need in our communities and our schools with our young people. So I just want to start by looking at a kind of deanery project, first of all, and I'm going to focus on secondary, and then we're going to look at a diocesan-wide project in primaries next. So when I started the role, I decided to go and visit all the secondary schools first because I felt, and in consultation with others, that it was the secondary schools that were probably least well served by the Church of England. We often have very strong relationships with our church primaries. The first school I went to in Dorchester Archdeaconry, and the head said there is an epidemic of anxiety in our school. And I'm sorry to say, I've been testing that hypothesis against all the schools that I've been visiting, and virtually none of them, primary or secondary, would disagree with that statement. So things are serious and really hard, and if you throw in the lack of funding that many of our schools are experiencing at the moment as well, it just gets harder. There's a quotation from the head of Ranelagh in Bracknell. That was something they felt very hurt by, and was very poignant for them in their SIAMS inspection. One of the children of a Christian family in their school said it's really hard being a Christian here at Ranelagh School, and Ranelagh is considered to be by many a sort of flagship secondary church school. So how are we actually supporting the Christians in our church secondaries? And it's just blinking hard being a teenager anyway. You've got to go from being a child to being an adult, and you get about 3 years to do it. If you were listening to the BBC Loneliness Project in September of last year, 2018, I was as I drove into work. They went through all the different stages of life, and the people who are most loneliest, not the elderly, actually they're the least lonely in some ways. The most lonely, by almost double, by their own admission, are teenagers. They're the most connected through their phones, and they're the most disconnected, actually, with the rest of the world and the relationships that they need. The way forward? Well, in Bracknell, it's been great. There has been a will. It's just beginning with the deanery, but it's come from within the deanery, from a specific parish. It's taken it to the deanery to reach out to its secondary school. There are things that they're already doing, like prayer spaces and mentoring, Christian Union, but they want to do so much more. There are just some of the things we've been talking about at Bracknell. Pastoral care for the staff as well is very important. And at the bottom there, the contemplative toolkit, something which I'll tell you a bit more about in a minute, because it's really more to do with the primaries. There's this will to reach out from the school as well to its local church communities. They know they don't have the resource to do this on their own. They are desperate for the church to step into the breach. They want all the help they can get in nearly all the cases I've been to. So what's happening in Bracknell? They've decided that they want to put in for funding for a full-time chaplain across 3 secondary schools in Bracknell, including Ranelagh. and they want that chaplain not necessarily to be ordained, in fact, quite possibly not to be ordained, but to lead a chaplaincy team, which is drawn from an ecumenical gathering of people who are supportive and enthusiastic about reaching out to their young. It needs to be local. We don't want people parachuting in, and it needs to be sustainable. It needs to last beyond the incumbent of that post, whoever that might be, lay or ordained. So we're going to be bidding for that. We've got a plan A, full funded, plan B, part-time funded, and a plan C where we get no funding, but we'll do it anyway. So now I want to come to the last slide. This is about a diocesan-wide primary project, which is really beginning to crystallise now. I've got a bit of a hero. He's called Ernie Christie. He was someone, I was given his contact when I came into post. He is from the Catholic Diocese of Townsville in Queensland, Australia, and his motto is, here we go, slower, wiser, deeper. Thank you. I've been practicing that a lot. So he has got a vision for a really contemplative diocese in Townsville. And he believes that what's amazing about the contemplative tradition is that you can be distinctively Christian because these are ancient pathways of prayer, but they are utterly inclusive because they have such porous walls, because when you start meeting with God the other, then actually sometimes words kind of fall apart. So they started their project 12 years ago across 30 schools, and they very quickly realised the most important thing for them to do was to get the staff on board. Because if you can get the staff on board, then you can roll out the model in a huge way. And because it's inclusive, you don't even have to be a Christian to do it, even though this is a distinctively Christian model. So they started taking their staff on retreats. Over the 12 years, 1,500 members of staff have been on 3-day retreats. Quite Christian light, if you like. They're not heavily Christian, but they are distinctively Christian, using these contemplative practices. Obviously, people have been going more than once. The staff have loved it so much they've been returning as often as their school will release them. And that then trickles down into the primaries through the staff who are being trained in these contemplative practices, and then that trickles up to the secondaries, where you end up with children arriving age 11 expecting to do the examen on a Friday afternoon before heading home. So what are we going to do? We're going to steal all of that, but we're going to do it in our own distinctive way. So we're creating our own contemplative toolkit. That's just a working title. It's going to follow almost certainly an Ignatian spirituality, something that's been very formative in my life, but that I have seen work in my 14 years of chaplaincy. It works incredibly well for children and young people who want to experience the living God, but don't want to feel bullied into dogmatic belief. Here are the 5 stems, 5 branches of this toolkit. It's designed to follow the hand: stilling, noticing, that's the examen; dwelling, that's lectio divina; mending, act of reconciliation; and the 5th one, resting, some form of Shabbat, and experiencing that peace that passes all understanding. The really exciting news from my end of things is that every school I have spoken to and have suggested this to, at the end of an exploratory conversation, every school has said, yes, they would love to sign up, can they be a pilot? So we've already got 10% of all the primary schools in the diocese saying they want to be pilots, which is incredibly exciting. And we've got Ranelagh wanting that to be extended to the secondary too. And very, very importantly, when it comes to thinking about this across deaneries, is that we want you to be part of the team that goes into schools to teach this, to practice this, to model this for young people. I'll stop there.